It's the 7th day of the 10 days of protests here in Nigeria. Of course, we are seeing that it's taking different measures. Some states it's calmed down and it's picked up steam in other states. Today, we're hoping to look at an incident that occurred yesterday where one of our reporters was attacked by thugs. We'll be joined by the PPRO of Lagos State Police Command, Benjamin Hundeyin, to explain what happened and, give us up-to-date details as to what the next steps are regarding this assault. I am Olive Emodi, and you're welcome to Breakfast Central.
And I am Osaogi Ogbawan. Yes, to establish, a proper understanding of what the police and journalist relationship is here in Lagos and across the whole country. And of course, what level of protection, needs to be accorded to journalists here in Lagos State. Those are some of the things that we're talking about, along with on the Nigerian scale. The Nigerian government has declared that the foreign sponsors, the diaspora sponsors of the protest, have been identified and have had their accounts blocked. And of course, I believe that they would also be approached at some point. And it's one of the things that I believe that we'll also be expanding on this morning. And my question really, or what it sounds like to me really, is that the Nigerian government still hasn't, thought to accept that the protests are being sponsored by actual hunger and frustration of the Nigerian people. And if you remember from the president's speech, like you said, and many other people, even Professor Wole Soyinka, who I would always quote, he basically was saying that the president's speech didn't seem to be in touch with the realities of the Nigerian people and what the Nigerian people were complaining about. And it felt like his speech was mostly to once again detail his achievement in the last 1 year of, in office, not necessarily to address the concerns that the people were complaining about and the demands that they had put forward. And so, again, it doesn't sound like they believe that hunger, frustration, unemployment, and some of those details are the reasons behind the protest. They still feel that it has been sponsored by one person or another, and maybe the opposition. If you remember, Bayo Onanuga, first of all, blamed Peter Obi and the IPOB and the likes, and we've also heard from a few other government spokespersons blaming the opposition without, wanting to accept or wanting to, understand that the Nigerian people truly are frustrated and truly are hungry, and that is the reason behind the protest. I said it on Monday that we barely even see people who, supported the idea of a Bola Tinubu presidency, the people who voted for Mr. President to get into office. You barely even see them coming out fully to support, his 1 year in office and put their names and their faces behind, him. Many of them, are complaining about the same things. And so It's difficult to understand why, we're still focusing on diaspora sponsors of the protest. But we'll see. And it would be great if they can name these people. It would be great. And I think the Nigerian people would like to hear from the Nigerian government who these people are, who these sponsors are,
It's not enough to say that we're freezing the account of the sponsors.
Yeah, let's know who they are.
Because it's the same thing we've heard about. We now know the sponsors of oil theft. We know their names, sponsors of terrorism. And we never really get names. And even the few times that we have gotten names, what really has been done about it? Has proper investigation occurred, or is it just one of those issues that we never hear about again? As an aside, I want to touch on something that I saw yesterday. And it was an open letter from a popular comedian who's now a politician, Seyi Lo. It was a letter to official bats. It was a tweet. He says, "I'm very happy that I never voted for Buhari at any time. I'm very happy all the hits you are receiving today are because you allowed Buhari to rule Nigeria again. While I believe you can help Nigeria get better by fixing the mess, I don't pity you for taking the job." He went further to say, in fact, Ashwaji, thank you for stopping the exchange rate arbitrage that was enriching a few, blah, blah, blah. But I think the part that really stuck out for a lot of us is the part where he said, all the hits you are receiving today are because you allowed Buhari to rule Nigeria again. And the scary part of having thoughts like that put in the public domain is furthering the mindset of what people have always said, that elections are not done freely and fairly, that elections are rigged, and that you can decide in a democratic nation who should be president, who has the right to allow another person to be president. It fosters a thought process that there is a cabal that decides who should be president of the country as opposed to the will of the people. And then when we start to see voter apathy at the next or at subsequent elections, where we start to see Nigerians not showing up, it is because of posts like this. I'm hoping that public figures can take into account the role that they play, the influence that they wield, and not just right, because this was a really, really careless post, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but he's, of course, within his rights to express himself, the way he deems fit. I'm always just going to question the decision of 2014, and I understand that Nigerians did come out to vote, in that election. There was many reasons that many, Nigerians were aggrieved against the Goodluck Ebele Jonathan administration, but the question for me would be, what did, former President Muhammadu Buhari say to convince anybody that he was the best choice for Nigeria at that time? What did he say? In which part of his profile, political history, was convincing to anybody, any single person, that he was the best option?
I guess it was just more of, let's move back to what we know and give him a second chance. The same argument we see all the time. I want to believe that letter by Sheyi Law was forged, and that's not really something he wrote, because if he did, it's not a good look.
We begin breakfast headlines with updates on the End Bad Governance protest. The Nigeria Immigration Service and the Department of State Services announced that they have placed the alleged sponsors of the End Bad Governance protest on a watch list. According to the agencies, the sponsors reside abroad. During a press briefing in Abuja on Tuesday, NIS Comptroller General Kemi Nandap said sponsors of the protest would be arrested if they enter Nigeria. On his part, the DSS spokesperson, Peter Afunaya, said the bank accounts of the alleged sponsors have been blocked and some of the sponsors are already in DSS custody. The Kaduna State Governor, Uba Sani, after a tour of the city to assess the damage caused by angry protesters, has described the unrest as a deliberate act orchestrated by a rogue sect to incite chaos. He emphasized the importance of maintaining peace and order, justifying the imposition of a 24-hour curfew across the state. And still on the End Bad Governance protest, Justice Sherifat Sonaike of the Lagos State High Court in Igboshere has extended an earlier order that restricts protesters in Lagos to the Freedom and Peace Parks in the Ojota and Ketu areas of the state. The order followed an application by the Lagos State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Mr. Lawal Pedro SAN, who sought an extension after complying with the pre-action protocols for preemptive remedies ordered last week by another judge, Justice Emmanuel Ogundare. And on Tuesday, our correspondent, Bernard Akede, was harassed by suspected thugs at Ojota while giving a live situation report at the Ojota protest ground in Lagos State. Our correspondent, who fortunately escaped with his crew without injuries, expressed shock that the incident happened in the full view of policemen detailed to protect lives and maintain peace.
So we're being harassed now. We have to go into the vehicle.
All right, Bernard, just take it easy.
So obviously we're being attacked by thugs and we have to go in. Yeah.
That's fine. You can just get settled in.
Well, in the meantime, News Central's Managing Director and Editor-in-Chief, Kayode Akintemi, alongside lead reporter Bernard Akede, visited the Lagos State Commissioner of Police, CP Adegoke Fayode, following the attack on the News Central crew at the Ojota area of the state. CP Fayode assured that the perpetrators will be brought to book. Now, away from that, President Bola Tinubu has approved new appointments of persons to head strategic agencies and programs under the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. The special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Ajuri Ngelale, made this known in a statement on Tuesday. Away from Nigeria now, Guinea's opposition coalition, the Living Forces of Guinea, have called for renewed national protests against the country's ruling junta, accusing it of obstructing a return to civilian rule. The alliance, which includes opposition parties, trade unions, and civil society groups, urged protesters to bring the capital, Conakry, to a standstill on August 12th. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. Move back to Breakfast Central now to continue conversations there. I am Osaogie Ogbon.
Residents in Kaduna are asking for the curfew, the 24-hour curfew, to be lifted because they've complained about how it's denied them access to their business and just general way of life. Emmanuel Bagudu, our correspondent, brings us more in this report.
Ahmadu Bello Way, Kaduna, the busy express road leading to Zaria and Kano, now seems like a ghost town. Security operatives are not leaving any stone unturned in an attempt to enforce the 24-hour curfew imposed by the state government. Other major roads, business areas and public facilities are all quiet. Residents were seen at the street corners looking helpless and hoping that the curfew will be relaxed.
Without salary and being the copy in place, I cannot be having access to go to other activities for me to get something to sustain my life with my family. So I do find it difficult at this moment.
If the governor will actually look into this matter and remove the curfew for us, a lot of people will be happy.
The farmer cannot go to the farm because of the curfew which is going on in the state, and which, if they do not go to the farm, I'm telling you, the crops there will get spoiled, and next year more hungry will come up, and if care is not taken, it will come to a time that the government cannot even control the masses because we are angry, because there's a code that said an hungry man is an angry man.
Some of them threw their weight behind government's decision, saying the curfew had become apt following the violence that escalated during the protest in the state.
Akwai yara da muka zo muna zaune mu muna ta control irin mu tabbatar da mun ga yara na wuce area mu ba fada ba komai mu area mu ba san rikici tunda mu ungon shafa ba san zaman lafiya ne sai daga ba muka ga yara suna zuwa da karafuna da me suna ta koran mutane da karafuna cikin gidaje. So we are not happy, but we did wannan abun ba sosai. Ƙwararren mu ya ɓaci.
We expect if anything related to protests, it will go peacefully. But along the line, due to there's some lapses from the youth that are arrogance. But we are praying to God for anything to become calm. We pray for peace, and alhamdulillah, by mere looking, our youths are complying.
Considering the level of cooperation the residents of Kaduna and Zaria have shown to the Kaduna state government, it is anticipated that this curfew will be relaxed soon. In Kaduna, for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Yesterday marked day 6 of the nationwide protest against hunger and hardship. While protests were held in a few parts of the country, we can say that intensity varied from state to state. Recall that News Central's correspondent spoke with us from Ojota in Lagos State, where a group of individuals ensured that the protests did not hold in Ojota, and media personnel were not allowed at the convergence point either. Yesterday, News Central's crew were harassed by these anti-protest individuals in Ojota. Let's take a look.
In the past few minutes, or would I say, yeah, the past few minutes as a matter of fact, but I'll start from what happened this morning. Upon arriving Ojota this morning, unlike what we've been noticing in the past 5 days, where we get here and then we see security operatives on one side and we see the protesters on the other side chanting songs of solidarity. Upon arrival today, there were no protesters here, just security operatives. And not just security operatives, but in heightened numbers. So it was like they came out with reinforcement, basically. Vehicles upon vehicles of police officers, trucks of police officers, all armed in their complete, riot regalia, all behind. However, what happened was, rather than allowing us shoot from in front of the actual center of where the protest was going on, the police officers moved us away from that area, and we had to record from several kilometers away from that particular area. So, the police had to explain to us after we questioned them. They spoke to us after we explained to them that we should not be there. All right, at the moment, do roll on now. All right, so we're being harassed now. We have to go into the vehicle.
All right, Bernard, just take it easy.
So, obviously, we're being attacked by thugs, and we have to go in. Yeah.
That's fine. You can just get settled in. Bernard, please stay safe, get settled in, and we can come back to you for updates.
News Central's MD, Kaide Akintemi, alongside lead reporter Bernard Akede, visited the Lagos State Commissioner of Police following the attack on the News Central crew at Ojota. The CP, Adegoke Fayoade, assured that the perpetrators will be brought to book. Now, joining us this morning is the Lagos State Police Public Relations Officer, Benjamin Hundeng. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thanks for having me on the show today.
All right. That was not a pleasant video to watch. All of us on this set cringed as we were watching that video. But I think the core question that a number of people asked is exactly what happened there. And there were reports of police officers being on ground whilst the attack happened. So why did they not intervene? What happened exactly?
Okay, so while I was watching the report, while you were talking before the report, you said that protesters were not allowed. Then subsequently, journalists too were asked to move away. I need to correct that. Protesters did not even show up because I spoke with the leadership of Take It Back movement, and they informed us and informed me too that they would not be coming out yesterday. So it was understood that protesters were not coming out. Then talking about journalists, that the police asked journalists to move forward. If you are conversant with where they were doing their protest, they actually closed up a particular lane. So since there was no protest, there was no need for anybody to be there. Thankfully, you have Zoom lenses, so you can just stay ahead and do your recording. That was the plan. It wasn't like anybody was trying to suppress the press. So what really happened yesterday, if you would agree with me that the entire debacle, if I could use that word, did not last more than like 5 seconds. And it's painful to watch that nobody beckoned to the police just a few meters away. They were around there. And before anybody, I was there, not when it happened, but I got there and I heard about what happened. So why didn't anybody reach out to the police? And I was told that, before the police was aware, they had entered their vehicle, they had gone. So it's sad that it happened, but it was also something that happened so quickly that before the police, even if the police had been informed, maybe before they got there, things would have, the press would have, the journalists would have left. But nonetheless, the good thing is they were all captured on video. These are people that are identifiable. The location, the spot is identifiable, and the Commissioner of Police has given his word that they will be identified, fished out, and prosecuted.
I mean, is there a time frame that we're working with?
Well, investigation usually does not have a time frame, but work started immediately yesterday. The statement of Bernard was taken yesterday, and we're hoping that everything will be concluded within a week.
I'm sure you can also see a number of the comments on social media. There are people who have expressed displeasure, not just displeasure, but a lack of belief that any of these people will be apprehended because there are people who think that they work hand in hand with the police.
I saw that.
So do you want to maybe speak to that and assure Nigerians that definitely these people will be brought to book?
Well, I don't want my words to convince people. I want our actions to convince people. So these people will definitely be apprehended and prosecuted.
All right, I want to ask about generally, concerning the NBAD governance protest in Lagos. You could call it peaceful, in Lagos State compared to, other parts of the country. But there's also certain things that you cannot miss, and that is the seeming high-handedness of the police in certain places. For example, the Lekki toll gate. There was barely any, crowd there, but we still got to see that tear gas canisters were fired. I think on day 2, I believe.
Day 1.
Day 1. Okay, so tell us about that, and what necessitates the use of tear gas, according to your training, and what these officers have been told.
Okay, thank you very much. I just remembered something, so I would like to quickly talk about it before I move to Lekki toll gate. Bernard in his report said, there was a heightened deployment of police officers at Lekki. That's not true. We did not increase deployment of officers at Ojota, I mean. We did not increase deployment of officers. It's still the same number of officers. But it looked like there were more because there were no protesters. So there were no protesters to mix with the number. So it looked like there were more. So having said that, Lekki toll gate, they won. Protesters tried to converge on the Lekki toll plaza. And we made them know that there was a court order, a subsistent court order that said there should be no convergence there. And it took us over 30 minutes to convince them to leave, and yet they were adamant, and the number was swelling. And we've learned from history, we know what that could translate into. So we patiently told them to leave, and they would not leave. And we also told them what would come. tear gas would come to disperse you. That's the least harmful thing we could do. We've used word of mouth. We've tried persuasion. It wasn't working. So tear gas would come. And after that warning, there was still a whole 5 minutes for you to decide to leave, walk out of that place. Hold on. And so they decided to stay. And one canister of tear gas did the job. They all left. And accolades came in, though privately people did not want to say that openly so that they would not be attacked. But people thanked us for making sure that there was sanity there and there was free flow of traffic.
Yeah, but first of all, it was more than one, canister of tear gas. I have seen those clips, from the New Central camera crew. Definitely more than one canister of tear gas that was used. And then second is, when you say that a crowd was gathering, that's why I'm trying to understand what is the training like? At what point does the police feel like they're overwhelmed and they need to then fire tear gas?
Okay, so let's not argue about number 1 tear gas, 2 tear gas, 3 tear gas, 4 tear gas. It doesn't matter. What matters is they were warned and they chose to stay. So it's not like anything was sprung on them. It was their decision to stay. And what was the training? We use force that is commensurate with the force we are facing. So to begin with, persuasion. That's very, very harmless persuasion. It doesn't work, then we move to tear gas. Now, at what point do we feel overwhelmed? We don't even want to be overwhelmed. We don't even want to get to that point.
But doesn't it, because what I would expect is that now you've mentioned persuasion. I wasn't there, but our reporters were there. But if you're talking about persuasion, you would expect that, you see numbers that, okay, there's no way that we can handle, these numbers. We can't deal with these numbers, and so we need to fire tear gas. Because, I understand that there's different levels of, resort that the police needs to take or action needs to take. But it seems like the Nigerian police moves from persuasion to tear gas. There's no other steps.
What would you rather? They are saying other steps. Name the other steps. What other step would you?
I believe that first of all, you need to justify the use of tear gas.
30 minutes, a whole 30 minutes.
No, but it's not a time frame.
It's a whole 30 minutes. And I'll let you know. Okay.
On what I'm saying.
Okay.
The justifying of the use of tear gas is not with regards to time frame.
Okay.
It is with the fact that, okay, this is a crowd that we can no longer control. We are now overwhelmed. The security and lives of other people are at risk. Before we then say tear gas,
That's the point. We don't want to wait till we are overwhelmed. Now, people were there doing live Instagram, showing other people at home that, we are here, nothing is happening, so other people can come. And we knew, we've been through this road before. We know what would happen. In a matter of 30 minutes, 1 hour, more people would arrive there, and we would not allow that. We would once bitten, twice shy. So they were given enough time to leave, and after the warning, they had enough time to leave. They chose to stay, and the tear gas did the job, and there was sanity there. And I'm happy that New Central is not reporting more violent confrontation.
Okay, some people might interpret that as the police sort of defending itself against the people as opposed to protecting the people that it has sworn to serve. I would like us to also maybe delve into how we got here in the first place, with the court giving the judgment as to where should be used for, or where, the protest, the approved points for the protest. So respond to those who see this as the police protecting itself from the people, as opposed to it being the force that protects the people. Then we can come and talk about, how we even got here in the first place.
Well, you're talking about the people you saw at Lekki Toll Gate, and we are looking at the larger picture. There are very many people, way more people, who feel protected by our actions. And they are thankful, and they commend us and encourage us to do more of that. So it's not about defending ourselves from the people. We are there to protect the larger society.
Do you mean this in response to Lagos? Are you talking about this as
I'm here to speak about Lagos.
Okay, because unfortunately, what we've heard and the reports we are getting, the larger picture is Nigerians haven't necessarily expressed that they felt safe, especially in other parts of the country.
Well, in Lagos, people have been so grateful that they could go about their lawful businesses without harassment and intimidation.
Okay, we have our correspondent who will be joining us, Bernard Akede, who was live. Unfortunately, he and his team were the ones who were attacked. Good morning, Bernard. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Olive. Good morning, Osaroge, and good morning, Officer Benjamin.
All right. We believe that you've been following the conversation so far. How do you feel, Bernard? First of all, I know that it's been a bit of a mental turmoil for you going through all of this. How are you?
Well, I think I feel better. It's been a very interesting week, or eventful week, so to speak. If you remember, starting from from the day before the protest, it's when it basically all started, and then all through up until yesterday, we were shaken up a bit. We were ruffled, and it's been a little bit traumatizing from yesterday. But look, it's like the police PRO said when we met yesterday. Said, look, these are hazards of the occupation, and I totally agree. It's just unfortunate that these things happen, and we're pushing. It's why we keep telling our story, so that these kind of things will stop happening. But again, unfortunate hazards of the occupation.
Okay, I mean, tell us, a little bit more about the Ojota incident yesterday. Our guest here, Officer Benjamin Hundeyin, says that, it took place in barely about 5 seconds, so you didn't have time to reach out to the police, at least to beckon on the police to come to your assistance. Clarify on, was there police presence? Could they see what was going on? Was there, is it maybe true that it happened so fast and there was barely any time for the police to assist?
Yes, it did happen fast. However, I think I have my own narrative of what may have happened. Now, the police did instruct that we all leave that particular vicinity where we were, and so we marched forward to, what's it called now, Ojota bus stop under the pedestrian bridge, where we were going to take the live report. In marching forward, I say that because there were a few police officers who ensured that all the journalists moved away from there. At least 5 of them, made sure that we moved, and they were behind us. We started the live broadcast, and then we turned around, and they were not there anymore. So I think that's what surprised me. It did happen fast, but I honestly think that if they were still there, they would have done something about it. I also pointed out a certain person who I strongly believe is a police officer. He was in plain clothes anyway. He was the one who came to call me first of all. If we roll the tape back, during Business Edge around past 12 noon, while I was speaking to one of our anchors, Lekon, the gentleman called me to speak to the police boss who was there. And I still have him. I took a screenshot. I have him on my phone. And then while we were attacked, he was seated under the bridge right there. I have no facts to verify this, but I want to believe that he was aware of what was going on. And even if, he wasn't the one who rallied the crowd, at least as a police officer, whether on duty or off duty, whether in plain clothes or in uniform, he could have done something. I strongly believe he could have done something. Yes, it did happen quickly, but I don't think it happened too quickly for the officers who were there not to have been able to do anything about it. And I think that's my disappointment. In the past week, yes, truly, the police have been quite cooperative. I wouldn't deny that. The CP who had come around had always given assurance and reassurance. I wouldn't deny that. But, in this particular, this was a step down from everything that the police have been doing throughout the period. If they have been doing a good job, I think this particular one just, spoiled everything. Just put stain on whatever they were doing.
All right. Bernard, we'll have you still join us again, but I want to come back to our guest in the studio. Mr. Hundeyin, you've heard Bernard, and I'd like you to respond to him, but also to answer the questions that were being asked, on social media. And one of the questions was, why is it so hard to clear these people, these quote-unquote agberos, like we call them, off the streets in Lagos? They constantly constitute a menace in one way or the other. So why is it so hard for us to get them off the streets? Okay,
thank you very much. I would like to quickly say something, permit me. During the protest, day 1, day 2, day 3, some of the protesters approached us and said, officers, please, you are too close to us. You are too close for comfort. It's like you are breathing down our neck. Can you just stay back a bit? Just move away from us. So that appeal, in the responding, it's got across it went beyond just the protesters, even the press. Don't get too close to them. So I'm not making an excuse for not attending to Bernard in time of distress, but I'm saying that we give some distance for people to have comfort. Now, back to your question, why is it so difficult? It isn't that difficult. You see, justice is on the tripod. The police, then the court, then the prison. So for us, we've arrested...
All right, just hold on. Let's take a very short break, and we'll come back and then have you finish your statements. Welcome back. We're still having this morning with the Police Public Relations Officer, Lagos State, Benjamin Hundeyin. Of course, in establishing, x-raying some of the issues concerning the end bad governance protest in the last 6 days here in Lagos State. Mundeng, you were speaking, responding to Bernard Akede, our reporter, and his perspective concerning what happened at Ojota yesterday. So just go on with that before
and
we
also
move
to
other
just
things.
add why it's difficult to clear the thugs from the streets of Lagos.
Yeah, so I said, let me say again, that some protesters approached us and said we're too close for comfort, that they would like us to just back off a bit so that they could protest comfortably. And we applied that to everyone, not just the protesters, even journalists. We didn't get too close so that they could do their things as comfortably as possible. That's not making an excuse for what happened to Bernard. I'm just saying that we had to give some space. So why is it so difficult to arrest or get these people off the streets? Justice stands on a tripod. The police would start and the court would take over and the prison would be the last stop. So for us, we have records of wanderers, miscreants, jobless people, thugs that have been arrested and taken to court. And because basically you didn't find them with a weapon, you didn't catch them doing anything, it's just that they are jobless and they harass people. It might be difficult to get a very strong conviction. Yeah, so they might go to prison for 3 months and they're out again. And we go over the cycle again and again and again and again. So some of these thugs will tell you, oh, I've been to prison before, so what's the big deal? So we need government policy to actually solve these issues. Arresting and imprisoning and sending them to prison would not really solve the problem. So that's part of the issues we face.
I want to go back to a question that my colleague had asked earlier when he asked you the process of, dealing with protesters, maybe in the case where you're trying to ensure that it doesn't get violent. And you talked about persuasion, and after persuasion, you talked about tear gas, which I believe is anti-riot material or anti-riot equipment. But at what point is it, first of all, is it legal to use live bullets during a protest? And at what point is it legal, if at all it is? So what is the order? You've talked about persuasion, tear gas. What's the next step? And does live bullet get into the picture at any point?
These things have to do with the force or the violence you're facing. It has to be commensurate. So police officers are empowered to use force, but the force must be commensurate with the danger they are facing. So yes, we have guns. They aren't for decoration. They have to be used not on animals but human beings when the time is right. So if the level of violence we are facing is that could take somebody's life, not just the police officer's life, even a human being's life, and there is no other way to stop that person from taking another person's life, yes, we would use live bullets. But those are extreme cases, especially in a protest scenario. So in a protest scenario, it's very unlikely that you would use live bullets, because it's also unlikely that somebody is out there to take another person's life.
There have been accusations, though, of the police using live bullets on protesters.
Not in Lagos. I speak for Lagos.
All right, so you're not willing to speak for anywhere outside Lagos?
I don't have facts to talk about other states.
Okay. Is there any other? Do you have rubber bullets? Do you have anything of that sort? Before we get to live bullets.
Well, we do, but might not be in substantial quantity, but we do, yes.
So if you what would you say that the Lagos State Police needs now to better equip them to handle protests?
We need a lot of things, But let's start with maybe patrol vehicles, because we had to recoup equipment from different divisions to attend to this protest. So I would say we need more patrol vehicles so that each police division can have enough patrol vehicles. But that's not to say we don't have supply coming in very soon. The Lagos State Security Trust Fund will do that. But we need more patrol vehicles. Let's just start with that, so that we can easily respond to issues before they escalate.
Okay. I don't know if we have that clip now. I've requested that we have the clip from the Lekki toll gate, and I apologize for what happened on that particular incident. But I want us to clarify. Okay, please, producers, please let's know when we have that clip. I just want us to clarify. What I feel is that there needs to be a better approach towards these things, and what it seems like is that the Lagos State Police, and because we're focusing on Lagos, seems to have a seemingly provocative approach towards protesters. First of all, we see that show of force, days before, the protest. Then, maybe a couple of days before the protest also, we see police officers being paraded with tear gas canisters, looking like they are going to war in Gaza. But, I shouldn't have used Gaza, but the point is there seems to be a provocative approach towards protesters. It doesn't seem like the approach and the training, the teaching towards these officers is that these people have a right to protest and you should be there to ensure that nothing goes out of hand.
Well, I don't know if the protesters expressed to you that they felt provoked, because we have been relating with them and I don't see anywhere they said they felt provoked, and we are there to protect them.
But if you move from persuasion, and I'm responding to what you said, if you move from persuasion and your next step is tear gas, and again, from what you said, it didn't seem like the police themselves felt overwhelmed or felt threatened. It also didn't seem like other road users felt threatened at that time. What you've said is that you don't want to get overwhelmed. And so your first approach, even if it is 7 people that are shouting, is tear gas.
Not first. You've
well, the second approach is tear gas. Mm-hmm. So doesn't that seem like there's already that train of provocation to immediately take harsh steps once you see people
Well, we can go on and on with this. I'm not changing my opinion about this.
I'm not expecting that you will. I'm just going to get clarity on why that is the training.
And I hope I could also play my video, because we did a video where we were talking to Just Adetone. I don't know if you know Just Adetone.
Yes.
I have a video where we spoke and spoke and spoke for a long time. So I don't think you appreciate what 30 minutes mean in persuading people. I don't think you appreciate it. And don't forget, in this 30 minutes, more and more people are coming. Maybe not in large numbers, but one person joins, another person joins, and the number is swelling. We don't want to see people mounting the toll plaza. This happened last year when they were doing the NSAS anniversary.
2020. Okay,
not
well, last
the
year.
NSAS itself.
Yeah.
The NSAS anniversary. People were mounting the toll plaza, and anarchy was about to set in. We would not allow that. So I say it again and again. We would not wait to be overwhelmed. 30 minutes is enough to persuade you to leave. You don't leave. We warn you that we're going to fire tear gas, and you have a whole 5 minutes to leave. You don't leave. It's your choice. The tear gas canister will be deployed. So if that same scenario presents itself again today, the same thing will be done.
Is that particularly about the Lekki toll gate?
It's about anywhere that anarchy is looming.
Okay, but what's the difference between Lekki toll gate and Ojota? Because there were more people at Ojota.
They were where they were supposed to be. The court approved for them to be there.
Right. So the challenge really for Lekki toll gate is that there was no court approval for them to be there.
The court order stated it specifically that no protest should happen anywhere in the state except for Gani Fawehinmi Freedom Park and the Peace Park.
All right, we'll come back to you. Let's bring in Bernard again into the conversation. Bernard, talk to us about the relationship between Nigerian police and journalists. In your experience so far and what you've heard from other correspondents with the station, talk to us about what the current reality is and maybe how we can better that relationship in terms of freedom of expression and allegations of trying to stifle press freedom.
All right, this is something I spoke about yesterday. I'm not sure where. Okay, it was last night on the bulletin last night by 10 p.m. The relationship between journalists and police in Lagos, again, I'm speaking in Lagos because this is where I'm domiciled and it's where I reside and where I work more often than not. It's actually cordial, yeah, but here's where the problem lies. I think, the PRO has also spoken about it, there are bad eggs in every organization, and we see a lot of that in the police, unfortunately. Though there's some kind of reform trying to go on, which I can see is obvious, it probably is not as fast as we expect to happen, and it's not spreading as much as we would like it to happen. And here's why I'm saying this. So in my relationship with senior police officers, like the PRO himself, the CP, certain other police officers who I have come in contact with while carrying out my duties, and other journalists have been able to do that too, you'll see that there is mutual respect, there is proper communication, there's good use of language, there's very cordial relationship. But when it comes to the low-ranking officers, permit me to use that language, the constables, the sergeants, I think that's where we usually get the aggression. And I'll paint a very perfect scenario. So on on the 31st of July, the day before the protest started, I was at Lekki Tollgate 6 p.m. doing another live report just like this, and we were accosted by a police officer. That video, unfortunately, also went viral. He asked if we had permission to work there, and I said, well, we are here to work. It's not the first time. He went to seek permission, came back with two gentlemen who asked what we were doing. We explained, and we were given 10 minutes to do our reportage. In less than 3 minutes, two other junior officers of the police force came, and without even asking questions, you know, the video that went viral is what happened. We were disrupted from doing our work. Camera operator was pulled apart, you know, and there was a lot of scuffle and back and forth. However, not long after that, I had to explain to them that, look, guys, you are live, and you don't want this kind of drama. Nobody's looking for unnecessary attention here. We don't want this drama. This thing that's going on is happening live. Then they decided to call, you know, to call their boss, who's a senior officer. She spoke to me on the phone, said, next time we should take permission. I said, madam, we did, and this is what happened. And she said, oh, are you sure? Is this the truth you're telling? I said, yes. She said, fine. So please finish up your reportage in 10 minutes, and you can go about your way. So again, you see, the senior officers, you know, more often than not, are very enlightened, educated. They know what's happening. It's the junior ones that more often than not attack or prevent journalists from doing their job. So there has to be some kind of synchronization, some kind of harmony, some kind of information spread so that everybody's on the same page.
All right. Thank you very much, Bernard, for sharing that with us. You've heard him. How can we, you know, your response to this, and how can we maybe communicate this from the top to the bottom, if I may use that?
Well, like he said, a few bad eggs. So doesn't translate to, oh, that like it's a pandemic on the force, that every single officer, we've been together since day one, and if we want to tabulate the good experiences and the bad experiences, the good experiences far outweigh the bad experiences, but the bad experiences are being highlighted more. So it's something we work on. We do training and retraining. Before you get your next rank, you go for a promotion course. So these are things we work on, and I just hope that the good experiences too will be highlighted as much as the bad experiences have been highlighted.
Do journalists need to take permission from police officers before they do their work?
No, they do not.
Okay.
But if you're doing your work, you need to do it responsibly. You don't need to maybe.
What is irresponsible?
I was coming to that. You need to do it responsibly. You don't need to maybe stay in the middle of the road and I mean cause obstruction or anything.
No, in this scenario, I think he was saying he was on the right side of the road.
I've answered the question. You don't need to take permission. Okay. But we've seen journalists that try to, you know, grandstand and just become a nuisance. I'm not saying nuisance right now, but we've seen such. And maybe you want to, interview people, and you're so, brash about it. So once you're responsible, you don't need to be. But if you're irresponsible about it, then you will be called to order.
So where the rights of the journalists have, in this situation, for example, where the police have sort of refused to allow them do their job.
But he was eventually allowed to do his job.
Yes.
He said he spoke with a senior officer who asked him to go ahead.
But you said he didn't need to take permission.
Oh, definitely. But and the senior officer there corrected it. That's why we have senior officers there. And when somebody is doing something wrong, you report to them and they'll correct it. And that happened.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just to highlight, he said that the senior officer asked if he had taken permission. So this sort of contradicts the position that you've shared with us.
It doesn't contradict it. It shows that the senior officer allowed him to do his job.
All right, just quickly, 30 seconds. I know they're chasing us out of here, but I want to ask also about the spread of tribalism and bigotry in Lagos. I'm sure you're familiar with the Lagos
on social
media.
Media. On social media,
yes. You know,
social media is not real life.
Yeah, but it is. Sort of real life.
Okay.
Protests have started on social media and eventually got into real life. So, the Lagos PDA account, can you quickly share thoughts on that and, if any steps are being taken?
Yes, so I don't want to talk prematurely. I don't want to jeopardize what we're doing, but it's been looked into. We've been overwhelmed with complaints about it, and we've duly noted the complaints, and we're working about it. At the right time, we're going to give an update on it.
Okay, we hope to have you join us back when we have some updates in that regard.
To be here again.
Thank you so much, Benjamin Hundeyin, for joining us. All right, that's the conversation that we've had this morning. There are more to come. We will share with you a quick recap and let you know what is to come still this morning on Breakfast Central.
Welcome back. Nigeria's National Bureau of Statistics reports a 40% food inflation rate, making essential commodities unaffordable for millions. However, the Minister of Agriculture, Abubakar Kyari, assures that the government has measures in place to address the situation. Kyari expects a bumper harvest in October-November 2024, which should increase food production. He attributes current shortages to seasonal reasons, reduced land mass, flooding, insecurity, and an aging farming population.
To boost mechanized farming, the government is distributing fertilizers and purchasing tractors. Kyari has ordered 200 tractors and 9,000 implements from Belarus to replace traditional farming tools like hoes. This was also referenced in the president's nationwide address on the 4th of August on Sunday. Joining us this morning is the managing director of BO Farms, Omotunde Banjoko. Good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, no, sir.
All right. Would you say that you're excited by the measures that have been announced, the equipment and the new measures that will be taken to improve the agricultural sector? Is this something that you're excited about?
Yes, it's a good initiative and it's a welcome development. Equipment being ordered from Belarus, USA, and Brazil. And the number, of course, the number from Belarus is very small. 200 tractors is not a number when we talk about the land mass of what we are doing in Nigeria. But however, maybe my concern as a farmer would be this thing didn't start with this current government. They deal with Brazil, started far back 2018 with the Green Imperative Project, when the government has been talking about bringing equipment in partnership with Brazil, assembling some of them in Nigeria. And for 4 years, you've not seen it. So that puts you in a position as a farmer to say, how real is this initiative? But like the president assured on Sunday, that he can confirm that the equipment are on the way. So that's an exciting information, and we'll take him by his words. Maybe in the next few weeks, some of those equipment will start arriving in Nigeria, and that will really change our dynamics. And like the minister said, we should have gone from oars to mechanized now, because even with the oars, with the few tractors we have, it's a pity. I can tell you authoritatively, there are some states in this country that can't even get a tractor. The state doesn't even have one, and the state even have to rely on third parties hiring equipment for them, and that has really set us back. Yeah, that has really set us back. If we still have to, and we still pride in something that is very funny. We still talk about 80% of our food coming from smallholder farmers who rely on hoes and cutlasses to do 1 acre, 2 acres for us to aggregate substantial quantity, which is also what led us to where we are. We have about 84 million hectares. We are cultivating just about half of that to food production.
What would you say? Because you're a farmer, so what would you say Nigeria is greatly lacking in the agricultural value chain with regards where we are now, where we could possibly be, and the real experience that you have on the field?
Okay. Where we are now and where we can be, like I mentioned, we have 84 million hectares. We are doing below 40 million, so we can be at 84 million.
Yes.
Meaning we can actually cultivate enough for ourselves and to export.
Yes.
So that's, and we have the ground, we have the land mass. And we also have the expertise. We have guys in the industry who are willing to work and ready to work, educated and enlightened, well-trained globally. So we have the manpower as well. But it's not enough to have the manpower, the equipment, like the one we mentioned earlier on. I was granting an interview some days back, and I was talking about the same equipment, that what we've seen before now, the few that government did, even at state level, at times, when you see some of those equipment getting into the country, who do they give those equipment to? They are used for empowerment by politicians. You understand? Now the equipment comes into the country, you give them to senators to say, go and give it to your constituency. Constituency means everybody in that geopolitical zone, but now you now turn it to a party affair, giving it to your party members. Now you give a tractor to a barber, you give a tractor to an Okada rider. You do some lotteries and you ask them to come and win lotteries. They win the tractors. Now they have to probably sell to whoever they want to sell to, or some even just so. We're talking about now that to now get to where we should get to, this equipment should be going to the right people at the right times. Of course, it has to be paid for. I'm not saying it should be given out for free, but maybe under a good and perfect lease system, maybe a long-term 5-6 years repayment period, maybe with moratorium, single digit and stuff like that. So if we are looking in those directions, then we can start changing the narratives. Then of course, when we are talking about how did we get here, we've had some very bad experience with flood, even as a country, losing several hectares of our farmland. We had 2 major ones in the last few years, one in 2012, one in 2022, losing several landmass. And how many people have recovered from it? I think that of 2022 was valued at over 700 billion that was lost in that alone. So you talk about what have we done to get those people back into business?
Right.
What have we also done to get those landmass that we lost in such a state that they can still be used?
Okay. So we've talked about the challenges of flooding and, getting these people back into the system.
The funding.
Let's also talk about the policies that the current administration have embarked on. Now, one of the policies recently, I think some weeks back, it was announced, Nigeria announced the policy that would allow for importation of food for 150 days. They were taking tariff of certain food items. Akinwumi Adesina, the president of the Africa Development Bank, said that this would cripple the agricultural sector. Is that a position that you agree with?
That's my position, and I also wrote about it the same way. It's my position because you don't use some temporary measures to discourage those other guys. You've asked us to go back to the farm. People have gotten loans, for example, to do some of these internal operations. So imagine if somebody has gone to take loan to do this operation, and at the time is to harvest and to sell, his landing cost in the market is higher than the ones that they've imported into the country. Then what would the guy be doing? One, they will either, if it's something you can store, you either store to wait for when the prices will be fair enough, or you might have to sell and be discouraged from going back to your operation. So if we are just addressing the issue of importation, what about the guys that have gone to the farm to use those expensive 30-40% to produce? And I'm one of those guys also. You've gotten your hand burnt using loans if needed to produce. And by the time the imported ones are coming in, it might and it will be cheaper. So I think while it's a good initiative, we should have also addressed the other aspect of the equation, which is those of you that have gone ahead to produce, how can we also make you competitive in the market? Because if you are coming to the same market, I'm to sell at 10 naira, is to sell at 8 naira. Nobody is going to patronize me, no matter what I preach. People are price sensitive in this part of the country. So those are some of the issues I think the policy, but the intent of the policy is good to bring in enough. But those are temporary measures.
But you mentioned earlier that Nigeria is currently producing enough to be able to feed itself.
I said we can't produce.
We can't produce. Okay,
enough.
Not that we are.
No, we are not.
Okay, so what measures
produce.
Would then, if you see the spirit behind that policy, but you see that it can also discourage local producers, local production. What temporary measures could the government maybe have implemented, or are there any temporary measures that they've implemented that you think are favorable?
What they could have done is, while addressing the issue of importation, you could also have found a way to discount those that are producing internally.
So like a subsidy of some sort?
Like a subsidy, kind of. Maybe it could be in terms of fertilizers, could be in terms of maybe the herbicides we are using. For those who need funding, are you able to push the right funding to them? So that, it will be a very good market and competitive.
Do we still have challenges with insecurity across the country? And that's why I was asking about the value chain. I'm talking about storage facilities, silos. We're talking, road transportation enough to move goods from farm to, to the market, electricity, security challenges. So when the minister says there's going to be a bumper harvest, in October, November, with these factors in place, is that realistic?
I'm not as optimistic as the minister, because you ask yourself, bumper harvest of what commodity? Bumper harvest is an ambiguous word. At the moment, we have some harvests, and I can confirm to you, we operate a seasonal kind of operations in Nigeria, farming. So at the moment, some people have started harvesting their maize. And recently, in the last few days, the price of maize came down per ton slightly. But I'm not sure it's sustainable because it's just because people are harvesting, and that might not reflect in the markets. It might not, because why will it not also reflect if I've been selling at a loss in the past 4 or 5 months and I have opportunity to cover a bit of my books, I might not adjust my numbers immediately. So that's one. Then bumper harvest of what commodity, like I said, is it maize? Is it soya beans? Is it cassava? So we must know what are we talking about when we say bumper harvest. Then should we still be talking about seasonal farming in Nigeria with all our river basin? We have about 11 of them. Yeah. And sometimes last year, July, when the president was giving the order, they said those 11 basins will be activated so people can do all year farming. But to the best of my knowledge, that has not been done. So those are the areas we should be looking at. And insecurity is still a major challenge. A major challenge. People are still paying, I think between November 2020 and November 2023 that we have the figure, farmers paid about 124 million as tax to, Boko Haram and the likes for them to be able to go to their farm.
124 million
about 124
in the whole year?
Million, no, in those 3 years.
Only 3
just
years.
in the, about just 3 states in the country. Not.
How much does e-farmer pay?
No, it varies.
Okay.
These are small, older farmers. So we are talking about just 3 states. I'm not talking. And then if you look at what we had lost in terms of projects, it's over 21 trillion. About 12 trillion projects that have been abandoned because of insecurity. I think from 2012 to 2021. So it's still a major challenge. We still see a lot of communities where farmers can go to the farm. And as long as farmers can go to the farm, our number. So I think we should be addressing the root issues if we really want to reverse the trend of this food inflation that we are witnessing. As at this time last year, we were still battling when we were seeing 22, 23% this time last year. Yeah. But now we are battling with 40%. We are not even sure if it will go down, it will still be rising. All
right. So wishful thinking, according to you from the Minister. Omotunde Banjoko, thank you very much for joining us. And of course, we wish you a bumper harvest.
Amen.
That's a very
All right. Amen. Thanks very much for joining us once again. Let's take a very short break. When we come back, we, of course, continue this morning and move into the newspapers here on Breakfast Central.
Let's find out what the big stories making the headlines today are. Joining us is public affairs analyst Sheson Okwade. Good morning.
Good morning, Olive. Good morning, Osag.
Morning.
To all our listeners. This outfit this morning is, let's proceed.
It's an outfit that speaks peace. Peace when trouble flows. Anyway, let's see what the papers are saying this morning. On the front page of our first paper this morning, which is the Punch newspaper. Russian flag. Federal government probes 4 northern political bigwigs. Influential political figures from Kaduna, Katsina, Bauchi suspected of sponsoring protests. Federal government deploys operatives in Niger, Chad borders. Protest arrowheads disown Russian flag wavers. Naira crude sale yet to happen, says operators. 4 suspected cultists nabbed for killing Ogunbaba. Import duty waiver on rice. Others begin next week. Federal government. We talked about this a few minutes ago with our guests saying that it's not good for the local producers. 1 trillion naira spent to fight insecurity in 6 months, according to a report. Reps failed to effect 50% pay cut. Wow! Okay, varsities mobilizing unqualified graduates for NYSC, says JAMB. CBN OK's Unity Providus merger SEC review next. That's all on the Punch. Let's look at the next paper.
The Daily Independent comes up next. It says here, end bad governance protest. Federal government places diaspora sponsors on watch list, freezes their accounts. Customs CG assures on drastic food prices reduction. CBN OK's Providus and Unity Bank's merger to avert failure. Right as to the first story I read, it says the use of foreign flags during protests, cause capital offense, says the police. Who authorized lethal force on protesters to be held to account, says Atiku Abubakar. The IGP says police and military didn't use live ammunition against protesters. End bad governance. Prosecute whoever committed treason as seed to protesters' demands, PDP tells Tinubu. To create 1.4 million jobs, federal government mulls revamping Nigeria's textile industry. And we can also find the police will fish out mastermind of Igbo must go, Lagos government assures. Funny story, Rivers APC assures Fubara of masterminding party secretariat, accuses rather Fubara of masterminding party's secretariat attack. These are the stories that we can take. Let's bring Mr. Okunade before we move to the last paper, maybe if we have time. Let's first of all start with the federal government placing diaspora sponsors on the watch list and freezing their accounts. Your quick thoughts on that this morning?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is most of the time do we carry out the due diligence before we actually make some of these pronouncements of people in diaspora sponsoring. What mechanism do we have in tracking those information before we come to the front of the dailies or we make those pronouncements? Is what gives me so much worry. In as much as we know there are external influence to some of the things that we are doing, we must have that mechanism to come true to say, okay, these are the red flags, not just coming with suspense. And most of the time, it's not just now. When we even find some of these people, you know, aiding, sponsoring some of these activities, how many have we punished in time past? Don't forget, I've always referred to the level of insecurity we are faced with today. There was a report then during the last administration, you know, shared with us from Dubai of some of those sponsors of some of these things that is against the peace of our nation. Up till today, we have not had a single report. So most of the time it comes up like this and you just read about it, you expect a lot to be achieved, but we don't get anything out of this particular. So for me...
Yeah, but first of all, do you believe that there are diaspora sponsors of the protest?
Of course. There are people who are actually out there and they feel that their intention may not be evil. You know, this end bad government, whatever, is just to, it's like a wake-up call to the government that these are few things we expect you to do and you are not doing it. So they may not mean the negative side that people may be looking at, but definitely there are people who are sympathetic about the cause at which we are fighting in the country and they feel that they just need to put. During the NSAS, you heard about your crowdfunding and some of these crypto actually being used to raise money. So it's most of the time on the sympathetic side to say, we are together, we are Nigerians, we're seeing the things that you guys are facing. Whatever you feel you need to get this thing out, we'll definitely support you so that we can fight the cost to a logical sense. But most of the time, it goes the other way around. Even when some of those things
what then, you know, would they be accused of, you know, to warrant the freezing of their accounts and placing them on a watch list?
Well, when the cost you're fighting for goes other way around, when you start seeing loss of life, you know, some of these things. Look at the lawyers that we saw, Adegorowa, who came out to be the lawyer for the end bad governance. He came out after today and said, guys, can we step this thing down? People came and said, no, we are not a lawyer. We don't know anything about it. And today, we are not hearing anything about it because he felt that there should be a... So when they expect people who are actually sponsoring some of these things to have control over the people that are actually out there and they are not, if it goes the other way around, you trace it back to the people that are actually financing those things. Because if you disconnect the financing or the support that they are getting, people may not just want to continue.
So you don't agree that this process is sponsored primarily by the fact that there is general discontent in the country, by the fact that people are hungry, people cannot feed?
No, I believe that's why everybody, I keep telling people, you may not see some people outside, but every time we come here, we lend our voice to bad things that are actually happening and areas where we expect the government to see. One of the things you read in the headlines today is quite disheartening that Mr. President came to address us on Sunday on certain things we consider as relief. And 3 days after, we have not seen relief and we are asking that will start commencement next week. You said the problem of food, we are relieving, you know, the import duties on it. And now it's not that it's starting immediately. But I've asked the question, if the instruction from Mr. President is to increase that particular tariff of duty that we pay on food from 10 naira to 11 naira, that thing you will not see memo before when they said subsidy was gone, was there a memo to that
All
effect,
right.
before people started affecting it.
We'll come back to talk about this. The farmers themselves are not particularly pleased by that. But let's hear from Asal, calling from Benue. Good morning, Asal. Please go ahead with your comments.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I want to make one or two comments as regards food security. If we import 1 million tractors, that will solve the problem. In a situation where almost 50% of our farmlands are taken over by terrorists and bandits, what I expect the president to do is to declare a state of emergency on terrorists and bandits. I am from Benue State, and I am aware of the fact that the whole of Benue Valley, from Yola to Lokoja, has been taken over by bandits. We cannot access our fertile land. Apart from the Benue Valley, other viable lands in the hinterlands have been taken over. So I am suggesting that the military should be given the marching orders to go out there and flush out these bandits. We don't need to import food into this country. We have enough land. We have enough workforce. All we need is sanity in the system. We have terrorists taking over Sambisa Forest. Katsina State is under siege. Zamfara State is under siege. My state is under siege. Plateau State is under siege. Nasarawa State is under siege, and some southern states. So the president should give the military marching orders to go all out and flush out these bandits. Secondly, I don't believe that there is a shared vision between the president and the state governors. While the president may have the best of intentions, that may not have a top-bottom filtration. Consequently, I am advocating for the establishment of presidential liaison offices across the country, charged with the responsibility of ensuring that laudable federal government policies are implemented. It may shock some of you to know that if we open some of the warehouses in various states, these warehouses will still be filled up with food items, palliatives, at a time when Nigerians are starving. State governors
All right.
will be,
Asal, we have to go ahead now. Thank you so much. But he's highlighted some very key points. Talking about if you open certain warehouses, that was the last thing he said. They're still stocked with palliatives. Talking about the fact that he's not of the view that our current issue is to be importing food, which is a policy that has been, or tractors, which is something that this administration is working on, importing materials and importing food. We had a guest before you came in, and the guest said, in line with what Femi Adesina, the president of the AFDB, has said, that importing food seems like it's a good thing on the face of it, right? It has a good intention, but it's also discouraging local production because there are people who have taken loans to already produce, and then how do they expect to recoup their income when these cheaper alternatives are coming in? So how do we then find this balance?
You see, we've been having this inconsistency on the part of the government with their policies, and we need to just check it out. I'm sure every time I come in here, there is no day we don't discuss this issue of insecurity. It's not only in terms of agriculture that this is actually impacting. An average businessman is finding it difficult even to carry out somebody buying parts from the other side to this side that travel. I don't know. I've had opportunity of traveling severally in this country at night. I can leave Lagos and move to Akure or move to Benin. I'll leave Lagos around 6, get to Benin around 10, 11. But these are years back. You know the era where we go by night buses now. People will leave Lagos night. The next morning, as you are opening Aba Market, they are there. Do we still have that in practice today? People, when you even try to move in the evening, on a normal day, people will tell you, why are you committing suicide? It's a suicide mission. So the fact raised by ourselves, I allude to it that what we need to address currently is the level of insecurity. How much money is being pumped into it? But my question is, do we monitor to follow through to say, okay, this is the president actually had meeting with the with the security chiefs.
Kindly hold on. Yeah, Mr. Kwande. So we have like a quick conversation that we need to have live from Paris with our correspondent who's monitoring the Paris Olympics, Yemi Galadima. So let's quickly bring her in. Good morning. I think it's morning over there. Yes. Good morning, Yemi. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good morning, and thanks for having me.
All right. So as quickly as possible, I know that you need to rush off to, of course, watch the race. Quickly tell us about Favor Ofili. A lot of Nigerians are heartbroken as to the recent events, and of course her finishing yesterday. Tell us what's the update with her. She seemed to be very, very hurt.
Yes, yesterday was an opportunity for history to be made because in 28 years, only one African woman who has won a sprint medal at the Olympics. And yesterday was the day that it looked like Favor Ofili was going to toe that line, but unfortunately she finished sixth. And she's been so heartbroken since then because of all that she's been through here at the competition after being pulled out of the 100 meters or not being registered for the 100 meters. And so she had high hopes that she was going to get like a confirmatory medal here in the 200, but that did not happen yesterday. Even though, she gave it her all, it was a 50% race, And if she had run the same time she had run in the semis, that would have actually gotten her a medal. So we are hoping that Favor gets all the support she needs at this time because she needs a lot of support. Because she's been listed for the 4x1 as well, and she's our strongest leg in the women's 4x1.
Okay, and of course, we're also expecting Toby Amusan running today, I believe. What are your expectations?
Yeah, so we have quite a number of people running. First of all, Toby Amusan, our world record holder, is going to be competing in the women's 100 meters hurdle less than an hour from now. And so we're hoping that we have favorable conditions for her to run well and get a good place for the semi-finals. So Toby is running this morning. We have Edose Ibadino, our national record holder in the men's 800 meters, who is going to be running this morning. And we have Christian Augusto in the wrestling 53 kg women's class weight from competing this morning as well. And in the evening, we have quite a number of people. So we have Ella in the women's 400 meters, Samuel Ogazi, who has made the final of the men's 400 meters. The first Nigerian man to make the 400 meters final in over 30 years. He's going to be competing this night, and we hope that he's able to get a medal.
Okay, we hear that Toby Amusan is about to run, so we want to have you go enjoy the race, and then we can have you join us again. Thank you so much for being here with us, and enjoy your time in Paris. Au revoir. All right, let's bring the conversation now back to Sheson Kwande here in the studio. There's so many other stories that we've been looking at. I want us to quickly touch on the Punch newspaper and quickly look at reps fail to effect 50% pay cut. Now, this was one of the announcements that was made in the wake of the announcement, in the wake of the protest, right? Just as the protest was getting close, they had this meeting where they decided their utmost kindness to thank you, that's what I was thinking of. In their magnanimous nature to give 50% of their salaries to Nigerians to aid the suffering. And a number of us were asking, is it just salaries? Or is it salaries and allowances? Because we know that that's where the cocoa is. But now, the reps, we're seeing updates. We don't know what the full picture is. But if the Punch reports that reps fail to effect 50% pay cut, does this then mean that maybe they have seen that the protest was not maybe as scary as they had assumed it would be? And what do you make of this story?
Or they were lying?
Yeah, well, I won't say that. Let me say this. Anything that has to do with the masses takes longer time. That's when you see the bureaucratic process needs to be followed to letter. Don't be surprised that, the first question people like us asked is that, what is the amount? You need to be specific when you're saying 50% of your pay. Like you asked, is it of the salary? You know that you have basic, you have allowance, your wardrobe, your days, which we've had in the public space accumulating to millions on monthly basis. Are we looking at that holistically, reducing by 50%, or is just the basic? Well, basic can be quite interesting. You might be going home with 2 million in a month, and your basic might not be more than 400,000. And that's what you want to have your 50% cut on. But be that it may, whether it's the basic or is the main salary or with allowance, we know that they will tell you that there are certain processes that that's the same thing I'm actually referring to. And that's why people still have this trust deficit, this trust gap building up every day. Because you come up, you talk to us, it's not that it's something you have planned before coming to say. It's like you say it and you start putting the process in place, which will take another longer time before effecting it. I remember when they talked about this issue of CNG buses, I thought that by now, more than 30% of government vehicles will be on CNG. But I've asked myself the question, if you and I that have just a single vehicle is advised to go and convert to CNG, what becomes of it if there are issues? Knowing fully well we still have knowledge gap in the area of those that have expertise in this. And when you have few people managing those kind of a thing, you discover that the cost will definitely go high because it's just demand and supply. So for me, I've said it and I will continue to say, if we must promote this CNG, we want a situation where the civil servant will take the lead. They should use that, our own funds that they use in getting them official vehicle. Make 50% of their vehicle to be on CNG. They let them come. They don't even need to come on air to tell us. Our people will relate to us and say, my vehicle is, we take pride in saying we are the one using this. But we have not seen that happening and we are encouraging. So we should maintain and monitor some of the policies that we're actually bringing out.
Yeah, we have someone joining us from Ogun State, Ubede, I believe. Good morning. All right, I hope you call us back. I mean, your points, are pretty strong, but I want to go back to one of the things that what we started with before we talk about the Russian flags. If I live in France, I'm a Nigerian, and I hear that, a lot of Nigerians have been hungry for the last 1 year. Many people can't feed. My family back at home is struggling. Well, family members, they will not struggle in Jesus' name. But while I'm in France, I then, hear of, come in protest, and I say, I support this protest. Government needs to be on its, on its feet. A peaceful protest, I'm going to send you people
money for
10,000 naira for water, for banners or flyers or whatever it is, right? Go ahead and peacefully protest. And then during the protest, criminal gangs or whoever it is, people decide that, we're too angry and we decide to go that way around. To infiltrate the protest. Infiltrate the protest. We are even too angry, so we're going to destroy this person's car. Should my account be frozen?
Well, like I said, the area the government will be coming on you is that you are a financier to things that is destroying it.
No, but destroying it how? Because fundamentally, Nigerians have a right to peacefully protest. And I think you're missing the part where he says he recognizes that these people are peacefully protesting.
I said that too.
And contributes to the peaceful protest. Unfortunately, thugs infiltrated the thugs that could have been contracted by anybody else.
Olive, I can only tell you this. When things are successful, like this organization, there are situations where the management will take a bold decision to say this is the route we want to go. The MD with the management thing will go. If it goes wrong, the other management might be pardoned, but the MD will not be pardoned. And that's the perspective I want us to look at it. If that protest is successful, those that are supporting and sponsoring some of those things would definitely be happy that their cause was actually. So that's why we say when you want to sponsor something or you want to come in as guarantor, have an in-roll to say we can have a limit at which we will checkmate this. I keep telling you, I'm part of the people that will tell you that protest must hold. But my fear is, can you control the people within your vicinity?
What do you define as a protest sponsor?
Somebody who, one way or the other, backed up to make sure that that thing is successful.
What if it is a woman?
What if it's a woman? For the hijacking of the protest?
Yes. No. But
no, you see, hijack comes when that protest has existed. If you don't have a sponsor to carry out a particular act, that thing may not happen and you may not get to the other side. But if you are an enabler in achieving that particular thing,
what if there's a woman along the protest route that gives them packs of food? Is she a protest sponsor?
She's a sponsor.
Wahala.
She's a sponsor because you are aiding for the success of that particular program. You are just going by and you say, my children, thank you for the good work you are doing. Please take this. Take this bag of pure water. And suddenly, in that environment, because they needed water, it went other way around. As far as the government is concerned, that's why they will always tell you to be careful. As far as the government is concerned, they will run after those that actually supported. That is the way government acts.
So her account should be frozen as well?
Well, if they
or
have,
she should also be questioned or arrested or something?
They will question the person.
Well,
that's why you say fighting the government is not an easy task.
I find
See,
that
this government goes after you in diverse ways.
I wanted to say whose responsibility is it to even fish out the thugs? So it feels like we're shifting blame where the blame should be. Because
no, we are not shifting it. It's the responsibility of the law enforcement agency,
to
like you are, to fish out those thugs. But are they going to do that? Most of the time, we leave the reality and run after shadows. And that's why everyone will tell you that for you to act in this country, you must be extraordinarily careful. Because at times, does the government actually, mean that good intention that they have for the people? Because if things are right, why would there be protests? We saw for 8 years promise. I still tell every individual that cares to listen that, see, Abba Kyari, the GMD of NNPCL, promised in the last administration that within 4 years we'll fix the refinery. He has told us that, Mr. President, announced to the people that by December, Port Harcourt refinery will come upstream. He came again in March, gave us an excuse. Here we are. He said by August, that thing will come to limelight. The question is, who will punish if he fails? And that we have seen in every area. But if it is one analyst or somebody that is speaking ill of some of the failure of the government, the next thing you see, even when what you're saying is sincere, is to be behind the bar, that you're actually speaking against or you are inciting the people against the government. When they have actually failed, because you can imagine if some of those refineries has been fixed and you and I are buying fuel, not saying to come to 100 naira that everybody is advocating for, but at least if you can buy for like 200, 250, you can imagine the impact that we have on our livelihood. But that is not being done. And people that are supposed to carry it out will come, they will tell you something when they fail. They are not being punished for it. Rather, we ask them to pardon them and allow that to go. These are double standard. I feel that we are actually, because you don't go out and tell somebody.
Can the government have the same, we need to go, can the government have the same approach towards a person who gave a bag of pure water and a person who, simply campaigned on Twitter and said, go protesters, go?
I wish they will, but they will not. Because the government of Nigeria is always after those...
What I'm pointing out here is the different ways with which a protest can be supported. It could be supported with a bag of pure water. It could be supported with simply retweeting. It could be supported with money. So why do we single out those who support it with money and then leave the rest, if there's sense in going after the protest sponsors?
I am saying that this issue of double standard is from the government. They run after who they choose to run after. You see some certain set of people that will speak just a small word and it will be overblown.
But is it right?
We all know it's not. A lot of things are not right as far as this country is concerned. But we conceal and just move on to see how it goes. Yeah. But we must be sincere and be genuine, because I have this to say that a lot of policies that are currently going on are not consistent, and it's really impacting on an average citizen, an average businessman, and government just need to see through to it so that we can have a better country.
Cheson Kwade, thank you for joining us on Breakfast Central.
A pleasure always to
start. All right, and now we will move to...
Ladies and gentlemen, on Sunday morning, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu finally addressed Nigerians in a much-anticipated speech that many had been waiting for in the weeks leading up to the protest. Sadly, as many, including Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka, have said, the speech by Mr. President fell short in many ways. Not only did it not address the direct concerns of the End Bad Governance protesters, it also showed a seeming lack of understanding or care for the frustration of Nigerians. Now, many have pointed out their issues with Mr. President's speech, but this morning I'm focused on the President's mention of the casualties of the protest. On Friday, the 2nd of August, the Punch newspapers reported 17 feared killed during the protest. The Daily Independent and the Vanguard newspapers both reported 14 killed during the protest as well. Now, like I was always saying, Nigerian lives are the lives of human beings who had dreams and aspirations. These were fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, and humans who deserve to be treated with human dignity and protected, just as the Nigerian Constitution commands in Section 14, subsection 2b. But Mr. President, in his speech, gave nothing but a simple mention of their deaths. In his words, he says, "I am especially pained by the loss of lives in Borno, Jigawa, Kano, Kaduna, and other states. I commiserate with the families and relations of those who have died in the protest. We must stop further bloodshed, violence, and destruction." That's it. A statement said in passing, as if it was just part of the script that he read, like it was just one of the items on the list to be mentioned. Nothing more. Just a simple mention, and moved on to detail his economic policies and achievements in the last 1 year. Truly heartbreaking. That the news reports, just like, of course, here on The Punch, clearly stated that no fewer than 17 persons were killed in Abuja, Kano, Niger, Borno, Kaduna, and Jigawa, and the statement from the president was just a simple mention without any calls for an investigation into the cause of these deaths. This truly paints a picture of how much value is placed on the Nigerian life, even at the seat of the presidency. Now, let us assume that Mr. President had a scriptwriter prepare his Sunday morning address, as expected. I'll assume that he read that script before going on to record that broadcast, before sending the script out to media houses. And yet nobody in that room felt it was necessary to do more than a simple mention of the deaths that occurred. Nobody thought it was necessary to add how important it is to investigate the cause of those deaths. All those people got was a simple mention, and that's it. This simply tells you that as a Nigerian, if you lose your life while protesting for a better Nigeria, all you will get, if you're lucky, is a simple mention, and the country moves on and leaves you behind. And one would expect that Mr. President will at least want to know if those lives were lost extrajudiciously, or did the Nigerian police, even if they are responsible for those deaths, have no other option than to fire live rounds into a crowd of protesters. If those lives were lost to counter-protesters or thugs or criminals, is the Nigerian government interested in prosecuting those criminals? We just mentioned, that they died and we moved on. And for those who say the protesters should call off their constitutionally guaranteed rights to peacefully protest simply because the protest can be hijacked by criminals, are you saying that every Nigerian should stay silent and never protest any form of injustice or protest to demand a better government simply because they should be considerate of the fact that even though the Nigerian defense and security agencies get allocated hundreds of billions of naira every year, they still are inefficient and underprepared and poorly trained enough to carry out their duties professionally and within the expected standards of policing? So since they are poorly trained and ill-equipped, Nigerians should then shelve their rights to peacefully protest? Our country really cannot continue this way. For your rights and for my rights and for the rights of every Nigerian to be protected, today it is their turn to peacefully protest. Tomorrow it might be your turn to peacefully protest. And at each time, we must demand that the Nigerian life is valued and protected. So this morning, I say, rest in peace to those who died in the last few days. And God bless Nigeria.
A sober but very necessary note to end the show. Once again, we say rest in peace to all who have fought for Nigeria. And we hope that their deaths are not in vain. While we talk about the labors of our heroes past, we must talk about the lives of those who have been lost in protests. Not just the End Bad Governance protest, but also the End SARS protest. And we hope that these deaths will not be in vain. I am Olive Emodi and we'll see you tomorrow.
And I am Osaoge Ogbon. See you tomorrow.